Hello CMA final students, welcome to this next lecture in SEM marathon. The topic name is linear programming. So this particular topic is very important, no doubt, for the next attempt again. So I have been giving for every topic this one, December 25. This topic is very important. In linear programming at inter level, you had the same topic at CMA inter level also. There it was all about formulation of the problem. So it was confined to only that particular question, whereas at final level, you are going to get solution also. So that is the difficult part, right? But so far, if you say take all the attempts, only once in June 2024 they have covered linear programming question. I'm talking about only descriptive questions, not MCQs. MCQs, every attempt you will get a question from linear programming, no doubt. But I'm talking about only that is descriptive questions. So only in June 2024 they asked formulation question. It was only formulation question. So far they have not asked solution of linear programming. So we have solution methods, graphical method, we have simplex method. So those solutions were not asked so far. Okay, so that is the reason I am expecting these solution questions in the upcoming examination, right? So linear programming involves three topics. At final level, what is most important is solution. Of course, to get solution you have to know the formulation also, right? So those who are seeing for the first time this listening this particular video for the first time, or this topic for the first time, what exactly is linear programming? If you have to understand in a simple language, it is like coding. If a computer has to understand, the language, whatever you want to communicate, there is a particular language which a computer can understand. That language we call it as that coding. Now in a similar manner here also, if you want to, in fact this linear the problems can be solved by software. Today, yes, it is done by software only, but it should be written in a standard form first of all. The form which a computer can understand, right? So that is called as formulation. So the problem, what is a problem now? The question is, what is a problem? In business, now we are going to confine this to only business. In business, what is a problem? The problem is the resources whatever we have got is minimum. So with those minimum resources, what we need to do? We need to maximize our profit, or other one is minimization of cost. So with whatever we have got, with restrictions, whatever restrictions we have got, within that only we have to, within the available resources only, within the restrictions only, we should try to either minimize the cost or maximize the profit, right? So this is what we need to achieve. So what the restrictions whatever we have, that we need to take into consideration here. So taking into consideration, right, if you come up with what? An objective function, that is what we are going to do in linear programming. So in simple words, a first time listener, what you can understand as linear programming is like a coding to a computer. So here also, to get the solution using the solution method, first of all you need to formulate in a mathematical form, you need to express it. So that is only linear programming. So you can see here the meaning of linear programming here. Linear programming problem is a mathematical model dealing with use or allocation of certain scarce resources, that is key factors like raw material, labor hours, machine time, capital availability, etc. So these all are the key factors which we face in our day-to-day operations of the business. So now our objective is how well, how effectively we have to use these resources in order to maximize our profit or minimize our costs. So linear programming will help us basically to do this. So clearly you can understand that it is a mathematical tool. Linear programming is a mathematical tool. For what? For using the scarce resources in order to maximize the profit or minimize the cost. Now, whenever you want to form a linear programming, that is if you want to form, so how the structuring is, first there will be a problem. The flow of, how you can understand this one is, what is the flow of linear programming is. First you will have a problem. First you need to start. Okay. Then formulate. So you have a problem here, you have an objective here. So then that one you should. So formulation is, okay, the first flow here, the first part what you need to do in order to achieve the solution, that is maximization or minimization. Next one is solution. Once you formulate, then we have solution. So solutions, we have various methods. We have graphical method to get solution, simplex method we have, even we have transportation and even assignment also. Those are also solution models. Once you get solution, then then comes interpretation. So solution, then interpretation, then stop. So this is the flow of linear programming. First you need to formulate the problem, that is either maximize or minimize, then get the solution using this graphical method or simplex method. So these are the methods what we have, right? So this chapter, even though we can divide into two parts, that is solutions and formulation, but so if you want to get the solution, you have to formulate the mathematical model here. That is the problem you have to convert into a mathematical equation. That is what we have to do. So typically what we have to do is in a linear programming, so how we need to formulate, what are the characteristics of a linear programming? Let's see now. LPP consists of a particular class of programming problems which meet the following conditions. So first of all, in LPP, first always we will have an objective function. So there must be an objective. So when I was explaining the introduction, I told you that business, either they try to maximize the profit or minimize the cost. So this is what generally happens in business. So this is the objective. So every LPP should have an objective first. There must be a defined objective, either maximization of profit, that is even maximization of revenue or income, or minimization of cost or minimization of time also. The objective function is denoted by Z. How you denote this objective function? Z. The objective function should be defined by use of linear functions involving the decision variables. Linear functions involving the decision variable. So when you write this maximization or minimization equation, that should consist of your variables also. Variables are nothing but through what we are going to achieve this objective. So if you want to increase the profit, that you can do it by your, if you are say a manufacturer, through your products you can maximize your profit. So what are the decision variables is how many units of the products you need to produce. Those are called as the decision variables. And the variables, there must be a decision variable. Just now I was telling you one example, we have taken products. Similarly, the decision variable could be time in case of minimization of time, processes in case of minimization of cost or minimization of the losses, which the decision maker may use at different levels. So these must be non-negative. So obviously the number of units what we are going to produce should not be negative, no, those should be non-negative. These decision variables may be denoted by alphabets like A, B, C or X1, X2, X3. So you don't know how many units they need to produce to maximize the profit. So we will assume them as X1, X2, X3 like that, or A, B, C like that, or XYZ or ABC. You can use any of these alphabets to represent those decision variables. So first one is you should have an objective function, then you should have variables, and third one constraints. Just now I was telling you, in the example that, see, if to produce a product, what are the inputs we require? Raw material we require, labor, our hours we require. So if you have limited raw material and limited labor, then those are the restrictions what we have. So those restrictions we should express in the form of equations. So whenever you are expressing them, greater than sign, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to signs we need to use. Sometimes it can be equal to sign also. If you have exactly equal to, if they mention what exact it must be equal to, then you can use equal to symbol. When we use this greater than is whenever they use minimum. Whenever they use the word maximum, we use the symbol less than or equal to. So these are the three things what we need to do whenever you need to formulate this. So in LPP, what are the three things we consist of? LPP structure. So what it involves basically, it will have three things. Of course, two things we will have. One is the objective function, other one is the restrictions. First one is objective function, represented by, it is represented by Z, capital Z. So this objective could be what? It could be maximization. Maximization of what? It could be maximization of revenue, or it could be maximization of profit, or other objective is minimization. Minimization of either cost or it could be time also. Right, this is the objective function. Next, then you will have restrictions. In objective function, what we need to maximize the profit, and profit is generated through what? Through your products. So those products only will take it as decision variables. We call them as variables. Decision variables. What are decision variables is, variables through which objective is achieved. Objective is achieved. So if you want to maximize your profit or revenue, it can be done only through your products. So the decision variables are the products here, right? Next, finally, conditions. What are the conditions here? Conditions are nothing but the restrictions. That is basically, what are this? Restrictions we can call them as, or the scarce resources what we have. Right, so this is what here objective variables and constraints. Third one is conditions are nothing but what? Constraints. Now, these are the three things. So, what are the steps involved in formulating is whenever you want to formulate LPP, first you need to analyze the question. Step number one is analysis. Clearly, you need to analyze what exactly you need to maximize or minimize. Right? That is what you have to do. Analysis of the objective to be achieved. Analysis of the objective to be achieved and variables. Step number two is then objective function. Objective function. Objective function consists of your maximization or minimization represented by Z. And it should have the variables, linear variables you should have. Which variables? Linear variables. Formulated through linear variables. Linear variables. See, x power 1, this is a linear. See, x power n, this is a non-linear. So, it is linear. So, this entire formulation, whatever we are doing is linear, not non-linear. Then, third one is constraints. Constraints. So, here we are going to use less than or greater than inequalities we are going to represent here. Fourth one is non-negative assumptions. The variables here should be positive, they should not be negative. No, the variables whatever we are taking here, it could be x1, x2, x3 should be greater than or equal to 0. Non-negative assumption. So these are the steps. Right? Now, let us understand this with a practical question. Let's take your CMA Institute material only. So you can see that what are the condition? Requirements of linear programming is also given in your material. Decision variables and their relationship. So first we need to analyze the relationship among different decision variables must be linear. Just now I was telling you that it should be a linear variable. So whenever x power 1 you have, that is a linear variable. Well-defined objective function. So always LPP should have an objective function. Then presence of constraints or restrictions. There must be limitations on availability of resources expressed as linear equations or inequalities. So in an LPP definitely you must have constraints or restrictions. Non-negative constraints. So your decision variables must be always greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so those are some of the important points. Now let us take one question here. There is a wide application of linear programming. This is also one of the important theory question. This is, you have industrial applications in order to find out what is the optimum product mix in industries. What is the optimum product mix problem, production scheduling of the production. For that also your linear programming is used. Production smoothing problem. So especially in seasonal businesses, production smoothing, okay, is very important. blending. So mixing of the raw material, okay, there exactly in what proportions you should mix. So even for blending also they will use this. Transportation, already we covered that. In transportation I told you that it is one of the, transportation is one of the solution techniques, no. Product distribution problem. Linear programming is also used by oil refineries to determine optimal mix of the products to be produced by the refinery during the given period. Even transmission industry, also communication industry, railroad industry. So these are our industrial applications. Management applications, portfolio selection. In order to select an optimum portfolio, what your portfolio should consist of in order to maximize your return. That is also, I mean, in that case also you can use this LPP. Financial mix, how you should procure your finances, debt, equity, in what proportion, for that also uses. Even media selection, medium of advertisement, traveling salesman. So these all are various applications here in different fields. Right. Now let us do one question here. So as I told you already, the step number 1 is, first we need to study the solutions carefully. I mean the question carefully, analyze what are the decision variables, what is the objective. Then let those variables as x1, x2, x3 or a, b, c. And third one is you should express the restrictions there. Then finally non-negative. A simple question, this one, illustration number 1. Let us analyze this. A shopkeeper deals in 2 items, wall hangings, artificial plants. So these are the 2 items he is dealing in, wall hangings, other one is artificial plants. He has 50,000 rupees to invest and a space to store 100 pieces at most. So there is a constraint here. What is the constraint? Space constraint is there. 100 pieces only he can store. He has 50,000 to invest in these 2, wall hangings and artificial plants. Cost of wall hangings and artificial plants are respectively 450 and 200 each. He can sell a wall hanging at a profit of 80 rupees and artificial plant at a profit of 37. Assuming that he can sell all the items that he buys, formulate a linear programming problem in order to maximize his profit. So what is the objective here? Profit. Now how you are going to maximize your profit? Through 2 items here. What are those items? Wall hangings and artificial plants. So these are the decision variables. That means how many units of, how many items of wall hangings and artificial plants we need to buy and sell in order to maximize the profit. So that is what we have to find out here. So these are the 2 variables here. So this we can assume it as x1, x2. Then what is the amount you have to buy this? He has 50,000 rupees, maximum how much he can buy is 50,000 only he can invest. That means x1 plus x2 both together, how much he can spend? 50,000 only he can spend. Then what is the cost also he has given? What is the cost of each one? 450 rupees for this one, 200 rupees for artificial plants, and profit per unit also is given. So if you want to formulate now, how you can formulate is, what are the products here? Wall hangings, other one is artificial wall hangings, other one is artificial plants. And what are the variables inputs required here? Wall hangings and artificial plants. Now first one is, what is the money required for this? And what is the cost of this? First one is cost. What is the cost? 450 rupees for wall hangings. This one is 200. Okay, what is the amount he can spend maximum? 50,000 rupees. Maximum is 50,000. These are the restrictions. Next, what else he has given? Yeah, that is the only thing. And what is the profit now? Profit is 80 rupees per unit, this one. Artificial is 37. Okay, this is a profit per unit. Now what we should assume is let x1 comma x2 be the number of units of wall hangings and artificial plants to be bought. Now then what is the objective function? Objective function should consist of your this only, no. So how do you get profit? The number of units of this one multiplied by profit per unit. Number of units of this one into profit per unit. So maximize z is equal to 80x1 plus 37x2. 80x1 plus 37x2. This is the objective function, profit maximization here. Then what are the restrictions you have here? Restriction is cost subject to. What are the restrictions here? Is first one is cost. With respect to cost, so both put together, that is 450 x1, cost per unit is 450 into x1 plus 200 into x2. The total investment in this cannot be more than 50,000. He has to invest 50,000 only. So less than or equal to 50,000, or equal to 50,000 also you can keep. You can keep even equal to or less than or equal to also you can keep. Next, one more is and a space to store 1000 pieces at the most. So space, this is cost restriction. Space, next one, what is the space available? Both put together the space available is only 100 pieces. That means x1 plus x2 less than or equal to 100. x1 plus x2 must be less than or equal to what? 100. Right? And then last one, non-negativity assumption is x1, x2 must be greater than or equal to 0. Those should be positive. Those should not be negative. So these are the three things. Objective function we have written, and restrictions subject to constraints we have written, cost and space. You can see which symbol I used. Okay, you can see here clearly, let x1 be the number of wall hangings, x2 be the number of artificial plants that dealer buys and sells. So what are the decision variables here? x1 and x2. And then total profit of the shopkeeper can be expressed as z is equal to 80x1. I have written now here. Is a profit, we assumed it as, let decision variables here. Decision variables x1, x2. So 80x1 plus 37x2 is the objective function, maximize. And next is, similarly total cost of buying the items can be given as 450x1 and 200x2. Cost also I have written here. And it should be less than what? Which should not exceed the investment capacity of the shopkeeper, that is 50,000. So it can be expressed as 450x1 plus 200x2 less than or equal to 50,000. So the units multiplied by the cost per unit we have to do now. Similarly, second product also. Both put together the cost should not exceed 50. That means less than or equal to symbol we should use. And what is another restriction is space limitation. So the shopkeeper can store at the most 100 pieces. So we can express this x1 plus x2 is less than or equal to 100. x1 plus x2 is less than or equal to 100. Maximum, no, that is whenever maximum they use less than or equal to, minimum if they use greater than or equal to, you can put always. And moreover x1, x2 are physical quantities, no, so should be non-negative. So x1 greater than or equal to 0, x2 also greater than or equal to 0. Right? So this is how you can formulate. This is a mathematical formulation. Now maximize z is equal to this, subject to constraints. This is cost constraint, this is space constraint. This is non-negative assumption. So this is how you should formulate an LPP. I hope everyone understood this illustration here to understand exactly how formulation is done. Now what we will do is, we'll take up so in every question formulation is must, no, in every question. Next question here, in this they are using for a solution. But just for formulation purpose I am showing here. Solution again later on we are going to discuss that. First we will concentrate on formulation. So one kind of cake requires 200 grams of flour, 25 grams of fat, and another kind of cake requires 100 grams of flour and 50 grams of fat. So two ingredients are required, one is flour, the other one is fat. Find the maximum number of cakes that can be made from 5 kgs of flour and 1 kg of fat, assuming there is no shortage of other ingredients required for making cakes. Formulate LPP based on the information given and solve graphically. That is secondary, later on we will do it. So again, if you just prepare a table here, okay, what we need, what is the objective here? Objective is to read carefully here. Find maximum number of cakes. How many cakes we should make? How many types of cakes? One kind of cake requires 200 grams of flour, 25 grams of fat, and another kind of cake requires, so here cakes, how many cakes we can make? How many? There are two types of cakes here. Type 1 cake, type 2 cake. And this requires flour and fat. These are the inputs what we require for these cakes. Okay. Now what we need to maximize here? Cakes only, no? So these are the decision variables now we are able to identify here. Now for T1 type cake, how many units of grams of flour is required? 200 grams of flour is required. And fat, how much is required? This one requires 100 grams. What about fat? 25 grams of fat. Here 50 grams. And what is the maximum? These are grams, by the way, these are grams. And what is the maximum available here? Flour 5 kgs. 5 kgs means 5000 grams maximum. This is max 5000 grams you have. Fat, what is the maximum they have? 1 kg means 1000 grams. So these are the inputs. Now yes, now the question is, how many cakes of T1 and T2 we should make? So decision variable T1 and T2 only, no, we can let this as x1 and x2. So this is how first, this is analysis. We call this as analysis. We call this as analysis, right? So now objective function. What is the objective here? To let x1, x2 be the number of cakes of T1 and T2. Now what is the objective function? Is maximum number of cakes, no? So maximize z is equal to x1 plus x2. Maximum number of cakes. Yes, right? Then or xy also you can use. Next one is this, what is subject to, what are the conditions here? First, flour, how many grams? 200 grams is required. So 200 grams of x1 plus 100 x2 must be maximum 5000, no? So less than or equal to symbol we should use 5000 grams. Then fat 25x1 plus 50x2 less than or equal to 1000, less than or equal to 1000. So, and non-negativity assumption is your decision variables x1 comma x2 must be greater than or equal to 0. So that's it. So this is your LPP we formulated now. So here they assumed let x comma y, they used x and y be the number of cakes of first and second kinds respectively. Thus total number of cakes can be expressed as z is equal to x plus y. Limitations on the availability of floor is expressed 200x plus 100y less than or equal to, we used x1 and x2, less than or equal to 5000. And second also is fat limitation, that is 25x plus 50y less than or equal to 1000. And non-negativity is x1 comma x2 greater than or equal to 0. So concept is very simple. The problem is identifying what is the decision variable. So how you can identify decision variable is think with what you need to achieve. So whatever they are asking you to maximize, which one they are asking you to maximize or minimize. So to get the value of maximization or minimization, what is required to get the value of maximization or minimization, what is required, those only we should treat it as decision variables. So here in this question, they wanted you to maximize the number of cakes and they told you that there are two types of cakes. So here the decision variables is these two only, type 1 cake and type 2 cake. Okay, so steps are very simple. Only thing is identifying the decision variables and writing in the form of inequalities. Okay, writing the equations is the big challenge. Now what I will do is I will take you to read June 2024 questions under new syllabus to just let you know what is the standard of question what you can expect in the examination. See, if it is formulation, okay, he will give you a full case. If it is solution, no, directly he will give you equations and just he will ask you to get the solution. So what I will be doing is June 2000. So this is your June 2024 question paper. So June 2024 6. This is a question, 7 marks they covered. Here only we should analyze and formulate the problem as a linear programming model. That's it. Only analyze and formulate. Quickly we will read. FAMC Limited, a manufacturing company, produces 3 products A, B, C. So 3 products they are making. It uses 2 types of raw material 1 and 2, of which 5000, 7500 units respectively are available. So type 1 5000 available maximum, that is type 2 7500 maximum available. The raw material maximum, how do you represent? Always less than or equal to. Max always how do you represent in the form of equation is less than. You cannot consume more than that, no. So less than or equal to symbol we are supposed to use. The raw material requirements per unit of the products are given below. So now for each product, now 3 products, now A, B, C, they have given type 1 how many kgs of raw material are required. Type 2 also they have given how many kgs of raw material is required. The labor time for each unit of product A is, the labor time for each unit of product A is twice that of product B and 3 times of the product C. The labor time required for product A is twice of B, and when you compare with C, it is thrice of C. Okay, so that condition also we need to satisfy. And the entire labor force of the firm can produce the equivalent 3000 units. So entire labor force, all hours, if you combine, maximum how many they can produce? 3000 units. This is also another condition. So first one is raw material 1, raw material 2, those two. Okay, those two are these 2 equations, restrictions. Then labor is 1 restriction, constraint, that is And then entire labor force they can only produce 3000. That is one constraint. Next, the minimum demand of the three products is 600, 650, 500 units respectively. So each unit, what is the minimum demand? 600 for A, B 650 and C 500. These are also restrictions only. Demand is also restriction here. Then also the ratio of number of units produced must be equal to 2:3:4. So another condition is the ratio of ABC, okay, must be 2:3:4. The number of units what you are producing A, B, C must be in the ratio of 2:3:4. And finally, the profit per unit of A, B, C per unit profit is 50, 50, 80 respectively. Analyze and formulate. If you see, tell me now, what are the decision variables here? I told you now, see the objective. In the question, what is the objective? Analyze and formulate the problem as a linear programming model in order to determine the number of units of each product which will maximize the profit. What do you need to determine? To formulate LPP, determine the number of units of each product. That is ABC, how many units you should produce in order to maximize the profit. So, what are the decision variables? For ABC, you can assume let x1, x2, x3 be the number of units to be produced. ABC. And what is the objective here? Maximization of profit. So, what is the profit per unit of each of this product ABC? Given 50, 50, 80. So, what is the maximization function here? So, what is the maximization objective here? We are taking it as x1, comma, x2 and x3 be the number of units of A, B, C respectively. That is what you should write first. Okay. First, always you should write this. When you are before writing objective function, first you should write decision variables. Then, what is the function? Objective maximization, no? Objective function. Objective function you should write. Now, maximize Z is equal to. So, how many units of A? We assumed x1. So, 50 per unit profit x1 plus 50 x2 plus 80 x3. So, this is your objective function. Now, what are the restrictions here? Constraints subject to. What are the constraints here? First, raw material. No. Raw material is the first constraint. Yes. Raw material 1, what is the maximum available? 5000. So, for each unit, how many units of raw material is required? They have given x1, that is product A 3, product B 4, product C 5. 1 I am talking about. So, how you should write? Raw material 1, first one. 3, no, 3x1 plus for product B, we are assuming it as x2, no, number of units, into 4. So, 4x2 plus 5x3. So, this maximum you have 5000. So, less than or equal to 5000 you should write. Okay, next, raw material 2. Raw material 2, 5x1 plus 3x2 plus 5x3 less than or equal to how many they give raw material? 7500. This is with respect to raw materials. Right. Next. Now, third condition is labor. We'll come to labor also. Another one is minimum demand of three products is 600, 650, 500. So, this also we should express. What is the minimum demand for each one? So, that means minimum demand condition. X1 greater than or equal to, minimum means always greater than symbol you should use. So, greater than or equal, greater than or equal to should use here, minimum 600. X2 greater than or equal to minimum 650. Greater than or equal to 500. Right, next. So done, this condition is done. Next one is labor. The entire labor force of the firm can produce equivalent to how many units? 3000 units only. What is the labor time required? Next one is labor time. Each unit of product is twice that of product B and 3 times of product C. This is a very important condition what you have to write. See how you can write this. X1 time is, they are saying twice of X2. So 1 only we are taking here. 1 unit requires, okay, 1 hour time. So X1 is equal to, the time required for this one is 2 times of product B. 2 times of product B. So 2x1 is equal to x2. The time required for x1 is 2 times of x2. And it is 3 times of C, x3. That is what they have given now. So how you can express this is x1 is equal to, so what is the time required? Can I say now how I can express this? X1 is equal, from this x1 is equal to x2 by 2. Okay, here x1 is equal to x3 by 3. Can I write like this? Yes, I can write. So now here is exactly x3 by 3. So this fellow takes exactly thrice of what? That one. Okay, thrice of product C. 3 times of what labor takes for C. So 3x1 is equal to x3. So x1 means I can write x3 by 3 also. Yes. So now this 3 of them put together. So what is the time taken now? So can I take now x1? Let us take x1 now. For A, time taken. For B, we are taking half x. Okay, x2 by 2. This is B. And C, x3 by 3. This is the time required. It is not same for all of them. Time is not same. It is not 1, 1, 1. In fact, this fellow takes exactly twice. So when you compare with x1 here, this one is half, no, because twice means it is half. Here he will take three times of this, means this is exactly 1/3 of that. So that is how I am expressing this one. So now x1 plus, what is the maximum we can produce? 3 of them using together the labor. So x1 plus x2 by 2 plus x3 by 3, x1 plus x2 by 2 plus x3 by 3 less than or equal to how many units? The entire labor force of the firm can produce equivalent to 3000 units. x1, x2 by 2 plus x3 by 3 less than or equal to 3000 units. So this is how you should write that condition. Think about it, you will understand this. So how I arrived at this is this one, simple one I have explained here, through which this only I got that idea. So x1 plus x2 by 2 plus x3 by 3 less than or equal to how many units maximum they can put together, how many they can produce? See 1, 1 by 2, 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3. Okay, time required per unit into number of units. The total time, how many you can produce? 3000. So that means you can say that is hours. How you can equivalent word they use, no? So that means 3000 hours are required. Basically that represents the time, nothing but in terms of hours, no? So hours they expressed in units here. So basically this is hours restriction. Done. So that also we covered. So now one more restriction is there. What is that? The ratio of number of units produced must be in what ratio? 2:3:4. So here x1 is to x2 is to x3 must be in what ratio? 2:3:4. 2:3:4. So those who know ratios, how you can write this? x1 by 2 is equal to x2 by 3. x2 by 3 is equal to x3 by 4. This is how you can write them. So solving them now, x1 divided by 2 is equal to x2 by 3. So we multiply 3x1 minus 2x2 is equal to 0. So this is one equation, another restriction. Again this one. From this what we can get? 4x2 minus 3x3 is equal to 0. So this is the demand ratio restriction, and x1, x2, x3 must be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so in this problem two unique things are there. One is the ratio of number of units produced. This is one important one. See, this question can be again repeated in December also. Okay, better you practice this. Right, whatever I have explained here, that you can make a note of it here. So let x1, x2, x3 be the number of units of ABC we have taken. So profit per unit is given. So maximize restrictions: raw material 1, raw material 2, then minimum demand restriction, and then labor time. For x1, what is the labor? x1 time is 3 times of product C, 2 times of product B. So how we can write that is x1 1 hour. This one is half an hour. This third one is 1/3 of an hour per C. That is how we should know. That is how we should interpret that. Multiplied by the respective. So this is 1, this is 1 by 2, this is 1 by 3. So the maximum hours are how many? 3000, less than or equal to this. And last one is ratio. The ratio of number of units of ABC, that is x1, x2, x3 must be in the ratio of 2:3:4. So how you can express that as per ratios? x1 divided by 2 is equal, you can compare this one first, then this one we can compare. Okay, so that is what I have done here. x1 divided by 2 is equal to x2 divided by 3. From that I got this equation. Then x2 divided by 3 is equal to x3 divided by 4. So this is what, so from this ratio, this is what we can write. In foundation you might have learned ratios, no? So probably you might have understood. So from these equations you can get. Right guys, so understanding the question is very, very important to determine the variables here. So LPP is also very, very important. Even to get solutions also LPP is important. So in our next video, part 2 of LPP, part 1 this is now. Part 1 I am stopping here. So part 1 is purely, that is how to formulate the LPP. So 3 things: objective function, decision variables, constraints, and then non-negativity assumptions. Right. See you in part 2. Thank you.